Okay guys, here they all are, lined up together. I think I might have a little bit of a problem. Good afternoon guys, welcome back to my channel. So this was a bit of an unplanned video. My previous video that I was filming, I was digging through all of my knitting needles to find one particular set of needles, and I eventually had all of my knitting needles out on the table. So I thought, what a perfect opportunity to take you guys through my whole set, my whole collection, and just pretty much just do a walkthrough and explain what I've got, what I like, where I got it, etc. So let's start with the big boys, shall we? So my first set, my biggest set, is pink plastic 12mm set of needles that I got from Better Homes and Gardens. I got them with a magazine, and to this point they have not been used. Next up, I have a set of 10mm needles, and they are also plastic. They've not been used and I don't know where they came from. Next in line, I have a set of blue plastic 9mm needles. Now these ones are actually the most recent set of needles that I purchased. I was working on a chunky jumper and it called for 9mm needles, which I didn't have in my collection, so I went and bought these bad boys. The jumper did not turn out well, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, next in line I have a very long set of 7.5mm needles. Years back, my mother-in-law gave me a bunch of needles that she wasn't using, and majority of them were this vintagey retro, the plastic needles with this style head. So they came from her, and most of the other ones in this style also came from her. So these ones are in the purple. Following up from the purple, I have one shorter pair of pink 7mm needles. Next in line, I have 3 sets of 6mm needles. Two of them are the retro plastic green needles that came from my mother-in-law. Next is a longer pair of plastic 6mm needles that also came from my mother-in-law. Now my favourite needles in the whole wide world are a set of bamboo needles that my mum bought for me as a present. Now they start very small and go up to the 6mm, which is the biggest of them. They are bamboo, which is my preference in a knitting needle. I don't particularly like plastic, and I definitely don't like metal knitting needles. So these are the biggest of my bamboo set. Next is the 5.5mm. So I've got 2 of the short dark blue plastic retro needles and a 5.5 in the bamboo needles. Next is the 5mm, and I only have 1 pair of them, and that's in the bamboo from my bamboo set. Next is the 4.5, which is, for some reason, I've got the most in this set. First up, my bamboo boys. Next in line, I have a set of metal 4.5mm. I'm not quite sure how old they are, and there isn't a brand. And then next up, I have 2 sets of these metal needles. They came with the Art of Knitting magazine, which I've got two of the series. And sneak peek, I'm actually going to be making a series of videos going through all of the Art of Crocheting editions. So that will be coming up next year. So this is my biggest needle set. Next up is the 4 mil. And I've got one very long metal set, which came from my mother-in-law. Another shorter set, which I'm not sure what that brand is. Comment below if you know what the brand of that needle is. But it's a bit shorter. And these are my most favourite needles. These are my 4 mil in the bamboo set. They have been used and used and used. The point is blunt and the size is worn off them. They've definitely seen some rows. Okay, so we're down to the 3s now. I have one set of 3 1/4 bamboo needles, one set of 3 1/2 bamboo needles. I have one set of 3 1/4 needles. Now this is probably the next most recent set of needles that I bought after that 9mm set of needles. I needed to buy these needles when I was working on some very teeny tiny premature baby items for my nephews that we knew were going to be preemies. So I had to go down and get some teeny tiny needles to work on them. And I also have 2 sets of the 3 1/4mm needles in the metal. Now thinking about it, I probably didn't need to go and buy them, but they go with my bamboo set anyway, so that's okay. Okay, so we're down to the smallest needles now. I have one set of metal 3 mil needles. Now I'm not quite sure where they came from. They kind of look like the ones that come from the Art of Knitting. There's the bigger one, just to compare. But I don't recall getting them, so I'm not sure where they've come from. And then I've got my tiny set of 3 mil bamboo needles. I also have 2 sets of random needles. One's metal, one's plastic. They don't have any markings on them to let you know what size they are, so I'm probably going to have to go and get a gauge to work it out, but they're just 2 randoms, and I'm not sure where they came from. Next are my double pointed needles. I have one set of 2 1/2 mil metal needles. I bought these from an op shop where at the start of the year when I wanted to learn how to knit socks. So I just popped into my local op shop and picked up these bad boys. And these, you would have noticed from some of my other videos, are my set of bamboo 2 1/2 mil needles that came from the Stray Cat Socks Create It Yourself kit. There's only 4 in this set and there's 5 in this set. Definitely prefer knitting with the 5 needles. Next are my cable needles. I have this one, which came from a Better Homes and Gardens knitting magazine. I've used it once and I did not like the crooked needle. And I have 3 other random needles. Not quite sure how big they are. I just have a guess depending on the size of the stitch and the yarn to which one to use. I definitely prefer the straighter needles to the curved needle. And lucky last is my circular needles. I have 2 pairs of 3.25 birch needles and 1 pair of 5.5 mil. Oh dear. So let's just do this just for a bit of fun. Let's have a look at my bamboo needles. So this is my 6 mil, my 5.5 mil, my 5 mil, my 4.5, my 4, my 3 3/4, my 3.5, my 3 1/4, my 3, and my 2.5 mil double pointed needles. So obviously these were all a set except for these ones, and they live in a case like this. So I'll need to go ahead and pop them back in. So we have 6, 5.5, 5, 4.5, 4, 3 1/4, sorry, 3 3/4, 3.5, 3 1/4 can live in there with that guy, and the babies, the 3s. Let's wrap them up. So these were the set that my mum bought me probably about 10 years ago now, I'd say. And these are my funky retro ones from my mother-in-law, which I love. 7.5, 7, 6, and 5.5. I might have to try and keep my eye open to see if I can find any more of these retro ones at the op shops or anything like that. Okay, another issue that I have had is you saw that my bamboo needles got put away in their case, and they're fine, but all of my other needles I've had in this little Art of Knitting pouch, and they have outgrown their stay. There's too many in there. Oh boy, yeah, that's not even going to close. So I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. I'm not sure if it's just in Australia or if it's everywhere at the moment, but Moccona have actually released, in conjunction with Peter Alexander, some limited edition jars. They're so pretty, so gorgeous. There's 4 of them. I'll try and find a link and pop it down below. And I thought that this would be a great storage option, probably for my pretty needles, my pretty retro ones. It would be an alternate to just having this little pouch. So that's pretty well my knitting needle set, guys. Just a little extra video which I thought might be a little bit of fun just to film for you. Let me know if you'd like me to walk through my crocheting hook collection. Check out the links to our social media, which will be down below in the description, and you can upload photos and tag us on Instagram and share the love. Okay, have a great day everyone, and happy knitting. Bye!